everyone. We're so glad to see such an enthusiastic and curious audience today. आज का सेशन स्पेशली उन सब के लिए है जो ये सोच रहे हैं एआई के टाइम में करियर कैसे बनाए, रेज्यूमे कैसे स्टैंड आउट करें, इंटरव्यू की प्रिपरेशन एक्चुअली काम कैसे आए. वेलकम टू सेशन 3, करियर रेडीनेस इन द एआई एज and resume building and interview prep that actually works.
Today, we live in a world where AI can write resumes, AI can simulate interviews, AI can even suggest career paths. But the real question stays, how do you stay relevant, confident, and employable? To help us answer this question, we have a speaker who understands both data driven careers and human centered skills.
It's our absolute pleasure to introduce Miss Sneha Ganesh. She's a TEDx speaker and a sought after soft skills and communication trainer. Academically, she holds a triple major in mathematics, statistics, and computer science, and currently works as a data analyst at MIQ. What makes her journey truly inspiring is that she began building her career while still an undergraduate, working with Aspire for her organization focused on increasing women's participation and retention in the workforce.
Through her work, Sneha ma'am has collaborated with organizations such as IBM, NASCOM Foundation, JP Morgan Chase and Company, contributing across technology, alliances, social media, and project management teams.
Her achievements include being a finalist at the Women Tech Global Awards 2023 under the Speaker of the Year category, winning Community Awards and receiving the Her Rising Awards 2024 under Women's Professional. She has delivered 100 plus training sessions, conducted 70 plus one on one profile feedback sessions, and helped 1,000 plus individuals strengthen their resumes, LinkedIn profiles, and interview readiness.
Sneha, welcome to this platform. You have a very strong profile, and I was waiting that your profile should be read first, and then only I will be congratulating you. And I feel that the kind of work you have done is definitely help today those who have attended, who are attending this session. So thank you very much, Sneha.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward for an impactful session.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
With that, we now hand over the session to Ms. Sneha Ganesh. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I will take a quick minute to share my screen. Great. So, like the topic has already been announced a couple of times today, we're largely going to be focusing on two individual topics. The first one's going to talk about how you can build your resumes in such a way that it survives the test of AI, because we understand that in today's world, with AI choosing to be in a position where all of us are consistently either referring to AI for suggestions, or referring to AI for improvements, or referring to AI as something that is almost an automatic part of all of our lives at every stage. So, in such a space, how can you make sure that the unique human value addition that you bring to the table is not something that's forgotten? That's the first thing that we're going to focus on. The second thing that we're going to look at is how all of us can also just get better at interviews, because I've done a lot of one-on-one sessions for interviews. I've done mocks, I've done reviews, and I think a few things that I've consistently noticed in that period, I will touch upon those. And of course, any questions towards the end, I'm happy to take that as well. So let's dive right in. We'll start with the very basics, which is what is a resume, and more importantly, what is it not? So, the first and most important thing for all of us to keep in mind is your resume is a professional and academic summary of everything that you've done up until now. It is not a document where you just go and dump all of your information. So, if we've say been on this planet for 20 years, we've been in schooling, or we've done things for 15 of those 20 years, it's not a space for you to just go and dump everything that you've achieved in those 15 years. It has to be brief, it has to be concise, and most importantly, it has to be relevant. A resume is something that is consistently going to be evolving, something that's consistently going to be updated by each and every individual. It will be chronologically ordered, so it will start with the most recent and then move on to talk about further subsequent achievements in the past. So you will have to make sure that this is something that is brief and concise, because if we choose to make it a document that just has all of our achievements in the last 15, 20, 25 years, it's just going to become a big document which is going to sound like ठीक है मैंने ये सब कर लिया ये सब डाल तो दिया मैंने यहाँ पे but अब इसमें क्या जरूरी है मुझे नहीं पता. That's not important, right? So make sure that a resume at all times is something that is a summary. It strictly restricts your professional and academic achievements. It's concise, it's chronologically ordered, and it's maintained as per relevance. So hence is something that is consistently being updated. This is the first thing for all of us to keep in mind. So we'll now look at a couple of types of resumes and see when each of these types of resumes can be used, what is important about it, and so on and so forth. The three main kinds of resumes that I'd like to touch upon today. The first one is a functional resume. The second one is a skill-based resume. The third one is digital resumes. And as we're talking, you will realize, especially in today's world where an online presence is absolutely imperative, there's no way we can do without a digital resume. And of course, we've got platforms like LinkedIn, which aid us to have these. It is absolutely important at any stage of your career. You could just be starting out, you could still be in school, you could be someone who's got a lot of experience. Irrespective of the amount of experience, the area that you work in, what you do, what your job profile is, even if you're just starting out, if you're on a break, anything at all, it's important for you to have both the virtual and the in-person presence, and hence important for you to start maintaining a digital resume too. And your digital resume is like your key to the global world. If somebody hears the name of some person today, so if somebody's just going to say Samya, the first thing they're going to do is look them up online. There, so I'm just picking up random names from here. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you questions. I might towards the end, so I hope you're all listening. But so if anybody's going to pick up a name and just Google them, the first thing that the hope is that it is going to show up on your screen is your LinkedIn profile. Because if we're not going to have a robust presence of your professional accolades out there, it's difficult for a person to think, ki, acha, theek hai. I mean, I've gotten the reference of this person, but how can I be sure? The resume, everybody likes a lot of stuff on their resume. Where can I go to double verify this information? What kind of a presence do they have? What kind of things do they do professionally, which I cannot see on the resume, but I'd like to have more interaction-based information about, more in terms of the kind of network that they have, the community presence that they have. So important for you to start maintaining your digital resume, and highly recommend that you start using LinkedIn for this. The other two are functional and skill-based resumes. So skill-based resumes build on functional, so I'll start with functional. A functional resume is nothing but a base resume that talks about all of your achievements, of course, like we discussed in the first slide, chronologically ordered, making sure they're placed by relevance. For, let's say, the last, if you're applying for a role today, then you're probably going to talk about the most relevant things the last 5 years, 6 years. If you've got something of more relevance from before that, great, feel free to add it. But make sure that this functional resume has all of the important information about you that you would like for somebody out there to look at and understand about you. If a person does not know who you are and then looks at your resume, whatever information needs to come out about you from a professional standpoint needs to be present. So that is a functional resume. It solves whatever purpose. If there is a question, it is answering that question. So that's all the functional resume is for. And this is a great tool, especially when you're just entering the industry, or if you're someone who's new to a particular domain or functional area. This is something that you're going to use largely just to get yourself a foot in the door. That's what the functional resume does. But a skill-based resume, on the other hand, is something that's a lot more important and a lot more relevant, to be honest, because, again, today's world, there's no lack of talent or good skills. I personally believe that everybody out there is genuinely very, very smart. They're unique in their own ways, and they all deserve a chance at the table. What people need to see is, what is it about you? What is your unique value addition that you bring to the table? And how is that relevant to the kind of job, the kind of role, or whatever position it is that you're applying for? And that's where the skill-based resume comes in handy. A skill-based resume is a lot more tailored kind of resume. This is something that will vary job to job, vary profile to profile, And this is something that I will also recommend that as individuals, all of us change. If you're applying for, say, 5 companies, you're applying for 2 kinds of jobs, or you're just trying to apply for a couple of internships, this is something that will change each time. So you will have to make sure that the skill-based resume is very specifically articulated to showcase how your skill set is an accurate fit to the skill set that is being required or asked for the job that you're applying. So it will not be generic like your functional resume. It'll have an added layer which will talk about your exact fitment in terms of skills for the role that you're applying. And of course, like I said, the pro tip will always stand. Make sure that consistency is something that you retain with your resume at all points. This is something I've seen a lot of times. I've just like gotten out of college. Okay, now I need to apply for jobs. I will update my resume. I will send it out to a bunch of recruiters and I'm done. Or I've been in a job for 5 years. Now I'm looking for a role change. So I will open my resume the day I want to start applying for jobs and then update the whole resume. That's not how it works. A large number of times people miss out on a lot of important information, and also opportunities are always out there. You can't wait for an opportunity for you to wake up one fine day and say, "Acha, theek hai, aaj main opportunity dhoondungi," and then say, "Okay, today I will update my resume." That's not how it works. You will have to make this a consistent process. Anytime something new happens, you're going through a career transition, it could be a new achievement, could be a new course or certification that you've done, anything, make sure that resume is also immediately updated. Consistency is paramount. All right, so now that we've spoken about the AI bit of all of this, let's delve a little bit into the ATS, because that's something that's very important from a resume standpoint, from an AI resume scanning standpoint. What is the ATS? It stands for Application Tracking System, for those of us who do not know about it. The application tracking system is something that is used largely by almost all organizations today, irrespective of the scale, the nature of role. It's used in almost all fields as well. The major reason why this has come into play is because this reduces a lot of the manual effort that goes into actually scanning, screening resumes, which have taken up a lot more time. It also makes the process a lot more accurate, I would say, along with time, less time consuming, because the system is fed with a set of criteria. And it's said that if a resume meets these criteria, it's a good fit for the role that we're looking for. So naturally, this makes it very a lot more tailored for each kind of job role. It makes sure that there's a lot of relevance that goes into the scanning, because otherwise there could be several other resumes where we're just like, acha, maybe this might work, maybe this might not work. The ATS, on the other hand, is very strict about the scanning. It's just objectively going to go into it. It will look at the keywords and the criteria and the parameters that it's been fed. If the resume is an accurate match to those parameters, if it ticks off whatever boxes have to be ticked off, then the resume passes the ATS scan. It goes on to the next stage. If not, it doesn't. Now, this is advantages in a lot of ways to recruiters, but you will also have to make sure it's advantageous for you. Because if your resume is not tailored to meet the standards of the ATS, there's a very high chance that before the initial screening and you getting pushed to the next round itself, your resume comes out of the pile. That's not a great idea, because we understand that we're all very skilled. We all want a chance to put ourselves out there on the table and say, hey, yes, here's what I bring to the table, and I'd like for you to listen to me and then decide. So that's why it's absolutely important for us to start making sure that while we're working with our resume, we're also making sure the resume is tailored to ATS standards. So when I say ATS standards, there are a couple of basic things I'd like all of you to remember. So honestly, the ATS does not do anything very different to how a regular resume is. A few things that you will have to maintain. So I've seen a couple of resumes that people have columns, so they have one column here, skills will come on the side column, the rest of the content will come here, or they'll have 2 paragraphs inside the same column. These are things that are not ATS friendly. The ATS friendly resume is very simple and structured. It goes from left to right. You will write all of your content from top to bottom, content moving from left to right. You will have clearly defined structural frameworks in it. You will start with your name, you will start with the contact details, you will then move on to talk about your professional experience, academic experience, skills, projects, extracurriculars, volunteering, and so on. So these are individual specific sections of the resume, and it's important that these individual sections are very specifically defined and highlighted. No demarcations in terms of columns or like having extra colors and fonts and all of that. Keep it as simple as you can because ATS cannot see through colors. It will only work based on keywords and quality of content. So what you put in there has to be important, not how you put it and how fancy and colorful and the kind of fonts that you use. Make sure that your margins are clearly set. Make sure there are no spelling errors because naturally, since it's a tool, it's going to be easily going to flag out spelling errors, and it's not a great idea for us to make the first impression with an error of that kind. So make sure that there are no spelling errors, there are no grammatical errors, you haven't left out additional spaces, things like that. So this first impression of yours, not just to humans, but also to AI now, has to be very good. And hence, it's important for you to remember a bunch of these ADA specific standards and make sure that your resume adheres to these. So I will also take a couple of minutes after this to talk about keywords. But before that, let's now look at the components of a great resume, more specifically, a great ATS specific resume. So all of us largely understand how resumes need to be structured. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time in terms of structuring of the resume. So I did talk to you about the various things that go into the resume. That is all good. And of course, some of you would like to specifically show me your resumes. Happy to connect on LinkedIn after the session and we can do that. But I will now talk about it from an overview standpoint. A couple of things that you should remember about a great resume is almost all resumes have a lot of content. People spend a lot of time writing big paragraphs, writing. So I understand we all think we've done great. I completely believe and I completely resonate with the fact that we've all done great at whatever we've done. What's important for us to remember is that think about the resume from the standpoint of the person reading the resume. In my mind, I've got one resume which I want to make all fancy and flashy and full of content and send out. On the other side is the person who's received 150 such resumes. They do not have the patience to sit and read through all of everybody's flashy content. What's going to go through at the end is what's most important. So that person there is scanning resumes and looking at the resume to say, I'm looking for two things. If I see those two things, this resume is going to get picked. That's all. So you need to understand what that is and make sure that your resume is tailored to give out that specific relevant content. So when I say specific relevant content, what you have to keep in mind is not necessarily important for you to write huge paragraphs. Keep it concise, make bullet points. That is more than enough. Give examples to add credibility. I've seen a lot of resumes that people just pick up a bunch of, so you will have a job description. The job description has said that as part of my BU, I'm supposed to do 1, 2, 3. You will take the same 1, 2, 3, paste in your resume saying, I did 1, 2, 3. That's not important because, like for my own role, for example, anybody knows what the standard BU requirements for a data analysis job is. If my resume says I just did that, so I'm supposed to analyze data, I'm supposed to visualize it efficiently, I'm supposed to be good at Python and coding, and using this technical knowledge of mine, I'm able to come up with great insights. If that's all I write in my resume, that's not going to be sufficient because every data analyst who's applying for this particular job will say the exact same thing because that's what all of us have done in our past. What's important is what is the specific unique contribution that you made. Use examples, use cases, talk about an actual project. You probably don't want to name clients because that's going to be PII, but then make sure that you're giving very specific use cases. Give them examples and stories where your skills were highlighted. That's what's important. That's what will make your resume different to the 149 other resumes that they got. So make sure that it's real. You give examples. Don't just quote standard job description lines saying I had to do 5 things and I did 5 things. Also make sure that it's only relevant. You may have done 20 things as part of your role. You may have done 25 things when you were in college. If that's not relevant for the next job that you're applying for, don't mention it. It's okay. Only mention what's important because, like I said in the beginning, it's not the quantity of the content, it's the quality of the content that matters. What goes out in the resume has to be strictly relevant and important. And another tip that I will give you, which I personally, whenever I've done a lot of resume reviews, I've seen this has worked out across levels. Could be beginners to be somebody who's up 20 years of experience. This is something that really works. Along with real stories, give numbers and KPIs to actually articulate the kind of impact that you've created. Could be whatever, irrespective of the role in the domain that you've worked in. Make sure that you quantify the impact that you've created, because in a world that's so technologically driven, data is paramount. It is important. You can't do without data. So try to quantify the work that you've done using numbers to back up that impact you've created. X number of people reached out to, like for example, Dr. Arti was telling us in the beginning, the number of people that ANON has been able to reach out to through all of these seasons of ANON Ki Paathshala. Instead of telling me that I had 4 seasons of ANON Ki Paathshala and we created great impact, those numbers, the number of speakers, the number of interns, the number of individual lives that we've touched, the kind of impact that that had and the way that spoke to us, as opposed to just telling me ki 4 seasons of ANON Ki Paathshala and great impact. So that's the difference. So make sure that your resume specifically calls out what that numerical KPI driven advantage you brought to the table. That's important. And the last, use action words very wisely. So I've seen a lot of resumes that people just write content. And I mean, I know for a fact when we look at a resume today, you can tell me if it's ChatGPT or not. We all can do that. And I'm not saying don't use ChatGPT. It's completely okay. Use an AI tool if you're liking, use whatever you want to use. But it has to still speak your voice. You can't sound, everybody's resume is going to sound AI otherwise. It has to speak your voice and bring out what you bring to the table. So make sure that you're actively using action words. Talk about action words, for example, enabling how you were, so you were part of a project where you were able to lead a team, or you were a part of a project that was able to enable X and Y to happen, or you were a part of a team where you created X and Y impact. So make sure those kind of action words are used very wisely and used in the right spaces when you're structuring your content. So to recap, keep it concise. Make sure you don't have excessive amounts of content, but too many bulky paragraphs. Make sure that you've got your unique value addition that is quoted. Use numbers to quantify the impact that you had and use action words. And the last thing in terms of resumes is make sure that keywords are something that you use very wisely. And this is a lot more relevant from the ATS standpoint because, like I said, if you think about the ATS, right, just think about your resume and think about a tool. This tool here, you have the job description. It's been fed with a bunch of words from the job description, the most relevant, important words that a resume needs to contain. And this tool now, it's a blind thing. It does not have any biases. It does not know anything. It's going to go there. It's going to say word X. Is word X present in resume? If word X is present, match. Word X not present, not a match. And then it'll have a certain number of such words and keywords that it needs to match. And based on the percentage of match, usually 75 to 85%, depending on what kind of a role it is. If your resume matches that fitment, it pushes you to the next round. So it is important for us to make sure that number of keywords, the kind of keywords are accurately put into the resume. How do you find these keywords now? So Google obviously is going to be our best friend in terms of this. There's a lot of content, a lot of material, a lot of data available. Depending on the nature of the role that you're looking for, you can always search for this nature of role. Whatever you're applying for, could be an internship, could be you furthering your career, could be whatever that kind of role is. You would have identified what your market is. You would have identified what kind of company, or specifically would have known what company you're applying to. You'll know what kind of role. Give these words into your search bar. Go ahead and look for the kind of keywords that are usually sought out for in resumes that are applying for these kind of jobs. Once you've gotten this list of keywords, make sure that when you're structuring, so like I said, your functional resume would have already been ready. Now, to make that functional a skill-based resume, you will need to do this entire keyword exercise. So once you've got that list of keywords, when you're actually writing out your experience section, your achievements, your professional experience, could be anything, could also be your academics or the projects that you worked on, the volunteering experience that you have, it's important that you make sure these keywords are present in that content somewhere. That is very important. So it could also be words of specific skills that are looked after. So there's a certain set of skills that are very actively needed for this job to be performed. Those skills have to be present in your resume. And your job description can also play a huge role in helping you with these keywords because obviously if you're applying for a job, you would have received a job description. Somewhere you will find the JD for that particular job. And you're going to make sure, since the JD was attractive to you and it kind of fulfilled whatever you were looking for from the job, you are applying. So the job description is also another very important set of words that are fed into the ATS. So make sure that the kind of words, you could probably be talking about the exact same thing by saying, so the job description would say XYZ, you are probably saying ABC. That's the only difference. It's the exact same content that you're putting out there. But make sure that your terminology and the way you're wording that content fits what is required. So instead of saying ABC, now that you know XYZ are the keywords that are needed, make sure that you are rewording your content to make sure XYZ is present in it. That's what's important. So Google, as well as your job descriptions when you're applying, are absolutely important for you to search for these keywords and make sure they're always present in the resume. Great. So this is kind of what I had in store for the resume bit of our session. And just to quickly recap, we've spoken about the kinds of resumes, spoken about how resumes can be structured. We've spoken about what goes into making a great resume. We've also delved further into how, in a world of AI, the specific kind of resumes that have to go out. How can you structure these better with keywords and make sure they're ATS friendly? And how does the ATS work? We will now jump from here into the next stage. So resume was great, resume got passed through the first stage. You are now called for an interview. Now what? How can you make sure that all the great performance that you had in the resume, you can also put it out in terms of a great performance when you're sitting across the panel or the person who's interviewing you? So we'll talk about what makes a great interview, but so again, all of us know what an interview largely looks like. It's going to be one person or a couple of people sitting across from you. They've read through your resume, they've read through your LinkedIn, they know who you are from a professional standpoint. Now they're calling you there so they can understand you better. So the first thing that I'd like all of you to keep in mind when you go in for an interview is to remember that your interview has to showcase who you are as an individual. It does not have to talk about who you are as per your resume. They've already read the resume, they've already read the profile. If you're going to reiterate everything that they've already read, there was no additional value add that came out from that interview. The interview is for them to put an actual person to all of the name and the content that they've read in the resume. So remember that this is an actual interaction, and it's very important for you to make sure that this interview feels like an engaging discussion. And that brings me to the very first and the most important point. This often is what makes or breaks an interview. And from all of the mocks and all of the interviews that I've had a chance to take and help people with till now, I think this is the most important thing that I've realized. Interview fear is real. When I sat for my interview for my very first job too, I still remember I was absolutely paranoid. And I think that's normal. Because I mean, you're sitting there and you're assuming कि oh my god मेरे career उनके हाथों में है अगर उन्होंने select नहीं किया तो अब क्या? The first thing to do is to get that fear out of your head. And how can you do that? Imagine that you're having a conversation with a person. An interview is nothing more than a conversation. The person sitting across from you, the people sitting across from you, are sitting there only because their simple intention is to get to know you better. They've read your resume, they found you interesting already. If they didn't find you interesting, they would not have called you for the interview. So they're already interested in you. Now, all you have to do is engage them in a conversation in such a manner that their interest can further be piqued. That's all your job is. So think about the interview as nothing more than a conversation. Picture how you're going to have an interaction with a friend, with a professor, somebody you're close to, a parent. Just think about the fact the person sitting across from you is here to listen to whatever you're talking. I mean, in my brain, the way I look at it, so I love talking in general. I'm an absolute chatterbox. And if I go into an interview, that's the first thing in my brain. I said, wow, like somebody there is volunteering 35 minutes of their time to listen to me yap. That is so cool. And that is all that it takes for the fear to get out of my head. A person is sitting there to have a conversation with you. They're not there to judge you. They're not here to do any of that. They're sitting there to talk to you and understand you better. The second your brain rewires itself and your mindset changes to start thinking about this more as a conversation and less as an interview, you will become a lot more at ease and you will be a lot more comfortable having these interactions. So that's very important. Rewire your brain before you walk into any interview. have a mindset of a very simple conversation to say, yes, I'm going in here so I can have a conversation with this person. That's it. The second thing that you have to remember is I've seen both sides of the table, which is why. So usually the slide before used to say, don't undersell yourself. But then now, after the number of mocks that I've done, I think I probably should touch upon both sides. Don't undersell, don't oversell also. It's a precarious balance, and it's very important that you find that middle ground. Because especially with the number of interviews people have conducted, and any of your recruiters, any of your hiring managers who are sitting there, they've spoken to thousands of candidates in their career. They know when somebody is not trying to be their authentic true self. They will easily be able to see through it. And in today's world, more importantly, they will also see if you're giving them ChatGPT answers. It's very evident. A lot of people, so they Google, say, okay, what's this is a possible question I'm going to get. Tell me about yourself. Give me a structured answer to answer this question. And then they will go there. And so I've done mocks where I've had people give me the same 5 points. Everybody's giving me the same 5 points, just worded differently. It's so obvious that the answers are coming from an AI source, and they've just taken on those answers and they're coming here and they're going to give it to me. That's not the point of the interview. The point of the interview is for us to be able to see your authentic, real self. So remember that the most important thing when you're sitting in any interview is to make sure that whatever you're talking about sounds as real and as you can be. You don't have any preset standards to meet. You don't have to sound fancy and flashy. There are no such mandates. The only mandate is for you to be you. Because the people sitting across from you are looking forward to hear and understand you for who you are. They don't want anything else. So remember that honesty, authenticity, and being real is very important, is valued very highly. It's what's going to get you through. Also remember that you don't have to try to say additional stuff just so you can sound flamboyant. That's not needed. You don't have to oversell yourself. You've done 5 things, you can tell them you've done 5 things. You don't have to add masala and say, ki, oh, 5 ka maine 6 bana diya, I did 7, I did this also, I did extra. Not needed. The 5 things that you've done, make sure that you're stating it with absolute honesty. Make sure that you're stating it in an engaging manner. So like I said, we go back to the first point. It's a conversation. And a conversation cannot just sound like a question answer. They ask me a question, I answer the question. That's not a conversation. A conversation has both parties engaged in that interaction, and that's what makes a good interview. An interview where the interviewer does not feel like the interviewee is actually engaged and wants to have this interaction with me is already a big red flag. That interview is not going well. So it's important for you to make sure that that connection is maintained at all points. That will come from you being your authentic self and saying what's important. But at the same time, never undersell yourself too. And I've heard this a lot of times. I've got this imposter in me. What if it sounds like I'm bragging? I don't want to say so much about myself. What if they just feel like I'm here marketing myself? The whole point of the interview is for them to get to know who you are. You're going to have to be as honest as you can possibly be, telling them everything that there is to tell. If something happened, and if you've had an achievement in your career, by all means, you've put in the hard work, you've gotten yourself at this stage, you should be talking about it. So never undersell yourself out of a simple lack of confidence of feeling, is this good enough? Should I say it? Don't let all of that happen. Very important for you to make sure that you maintain that balance. And the easiest way to maintain that balance is authenticity. Go there being your true self. Put everything out there which you feel is going to add value to your candidature and your profile to in front of that interviewer. That's all it takes. Don't undersell, don't oversell, be real, give examples, give stories. Make sure it's an engaging conversation, not a question answer. The next thing that you should remember in interviews is, so why is an interview happening, right? So resume has gone through, they've identified that, okay, fine, there's something in the resume that was interesting, and that's why they called you to the next stage. But now what? Now they've called you in the next stage, they're trying to assess something. This something that they're largely going to be assessing from the overall set of conversations that they have with you is, are you a good fit for the company, for the kind of people that are working there, for the kind of work they're doing? That's the main important question. And for that, the most important thing that's going to be assessed, like for example, when Dr. Aarti is probably interviewing people to be interns for here, the most important thing that we're looking at is to make sure, are you aligned with the vision and mission of the organization? Are you passionate to go out and give back to people in terms of life skills and mental health? Is that something that calls out to you? Because if it doesn't call out to you, you're not going to be a good fit in terms of all the work that Dr. Aarti is doing. It's not going to be interesting enough for you. You're going to come there saying, अच्छा ठीक है मुझे 5 चीजें बोला आज करने के लिए, I will do it and I will go home. As opposed to a person who's actually driven, who's actually passionate, they will do 5, they will do 5 plus 2 also because they actually want to contribute. And that's what we're trying to assess in any interview. Are you genuinely interested and passionate about the work that we're doing here? Could be anywhere, any company, any agency, any volunteering act, any institute, anything that you're doing. The most important thing for somebody to hire you is for them to realize if you're a good fit or not. And the whole point of that interview is for us to assess if you're a good fit or not. So, for us to be able to assess and for you to be able to showcase to us that you're a good fit, you will have to understand the company very well. You will have to understand the work that they do. You will have to understand what's important to them. What are their core values? What are their passions? What is their vision? What is their mission? That is very important for you to understand. Only once you've assessed this, you will then have to go back and reflect and say, okay, for the company, here's what's important. Now, is that something that's important to me too? And if yes, and the hope is yes, because if you're sitting for an interview, there's something about the company that attracted you, interested you. And you did find some kind of a vibe match that happened. So now it's your job to showcase that match, that fitment through the way you engage with them in the course of that interview. So the kind of examples that you state, the kind of the way you try to talk to them about how your core values align with the company's core values, that's important. So do your research, do a thorough research of everything that you're going to be of the company side, and then everything that you're going to be talking about, and how do the two of them align. So your stories, your examples, your actions, all of them will have to eventually tie down to that, because that's how the company is going to realize, yes, this person is genuinely interested, and I feel like getting them on board is only going to add value to the work that we're already doing here. And that's very important. So make sure that your research at all points is very thorough. And before I wrap up, I'm going to end with something that I was personally taught by my mentor 4 years back when I was still in college. Actually, not 4, 3 years back when I was in college. 3 years back when I was getting out of college. This is something that I was taught at that time, and it's something that's helped me hugely, immensely in all conversations that I have, not just in interviews. And this is something I really want to leave all of you with. And of course, we'll talk about it from an interview standpoint, but I will ask you to also think about it from a larger conversational standpoint across all interactions that you're having in any professional setup. It doesn't just have to be an interview. This is a framework that really, really helps in terms of the interactions that you have. So STAR is a very simple framework, sounds very fancy, but honestly, it just stands for situation, task, action, and result. The words are as simple as they sound. The reason why I ask people to adopt this framework when they're talking and having conversations is because this is a very holistic framework. So when we're having conversations, a lot of times, especially in interviews, we're just like, jaldi jaldi bolna hai, I don't want to forget my points, things like that. And there's also some amount of that fear and nervousness and that weird butterfly thing in your stomach that doesn't go no matter what happens. And I completely understand it. So to make sure that all of those external factors don't make you miss out on the quality of your answer, you can try and imbibe this framework when you're answering questions. It's very simple. If you have been asked a question, you are going to answer that question by taking these 4 things into account. The first thing, so they ask you a question. I'm just going to take a random question right now. Give me an example of a situation where you showed leadership. Simple question. The way you can tackle this question is first set context to say what was the situation where you had to show this leadership. So give them a context or set the scenario so that the person can visualize, ki haan, theek hai, this is what they're talking to me about. So in 1 or 2 sentences, give them this context. Then move on to talk about what was the actual task at hand that you were solving for. So this was the whole scenario. This was the problem statement that was given to us that I was trying to solve for. Then move on to talk about the action, or what was it that you did What were the steps that you employed which allowed you to solve this task in the given situation? End the entire answer by talking about what was the eventual outcome or impact that you created. That is very important. A lot of people do STA very well and then they fumble at the R. The R is the most important. The result or the outcome is what's going to tell me ki, haan, theek hai, I gave this person all of this work. In the previous company, in the previous role, they had all of these responsibilities. They did the responsibilities, but then what? What did it eventually result in is very important. Because if I cannot see tangible outcomes and impacts from the work that you've done, how can I be sure that you've actually done all that you claim to have been doing all this time? So always end your answer with a very logical conclusion that talks about the outcome or the impact that you've created. So this is a very simple structure. Usually when we're having conversations, this is how we talk. If I'm going to come and tell you a story, I will start with the background of the story, then I will tell you who are the characters in the story, then I will give you the story, and then I will end with the moral of the story. Simple structure. Employ that into a professional standpoint using STAR, set context, tell them what the problem statement of the task was that you were solving. Could be a project, could be anything that you were doing, an initiative you were leading, whatever may be the situation. Make sure that you've got that situation outlined. You have the task outline. Then talk about what is it that you did. That is also very important. People need to know what is it that you did, what skills of yours were utilized when you were doing whatever actions you did, and then end it with what was the result or the outcome or the impact that you created. It's a very holistic framework. It talks about all points and makes sure you haven't missed out on any aspects of anything. So before we wrap up again, a quick recap on the interview bit of things. Remember that it's nothing but a conversation. It's an interaction between two or more than two people. All you have to do is sit there and have an engaging conversation that does not sound like just a question answer. It does not have to sound AI generated. It has to be your true, honest, authentic self. Use examples, use stories. They build very good hooks. They build for recall and they also enable connection because at the end of the day, the interview is happening with a person. And for a good conversation with any person, connection is very important. So make sure that connection is established. And of course, when you're doing all of this, it's a simple, straightforward framework that you can follow while answering your questions. Can be employed in interviews, can be employed anywhere in any interaction that you're doing, because all this framework helps you do is make sure that you do not miss out on any points. It's a very well-rounded answer framework. You touch upon all elements and you've made sure that at all points, I am clearly communicating value because people do not want to listen to a lot of all over the place nonsense. They're looking to understand, okay, this person is sitting across from me and claims to be good. Explain to me why you are good. And it's a very normal question we all get asked in interviews. Why should I pick you over the 5 other people who I've already interviewed before this? So it's important for you to make sure that your unique contribution, your value addition comes out through your answers, through your impact, through the results that you have driven in the course of whatever stories you're giving. So yes, I hope these tips were important. This is all that I had in store for all of you today. I've put my LinkedIn profile on screen. Feel free to connect if you all have questions. I'm happy to take them. And of course, like I said at the very beginning, it's important for all of you to have a digital presence too. The work ANON is doing is great. All of you getting to learn from so many speakers. It's amazing. Make sure that you go out there and share this knowledge with the world too. Your takeaways are going to be very essential for a lot of others to also get to learn. So start building your digital resume, start talking about this on LinkedIn. You can tag all of us and get the conversation going. Thank you so much, everyone.
We'd like to begin the interaction with one question based on today's session. What is the biggest mistake students make while preparing resumes and interviews in today's AI-driven world, and how can they fix it?
All right. So I'm hoping that obviously some elements will be discussed today would have answered a couple of this in terms of, more structural frameworks. But I'll tell you one thing that I've noticed a lot of times through a lot of the resumes that I've reviewed. I have seen a lot of people not know what should I put and what should I not put. And that's the biggest mistake that people do. People either overload their resume with way too much content or they do not put enough content or they put irrelevant content. And that's the biggest mistake. Remember that irrespective of the nature of the role that you're applying for, if you believe that you are a good fit, there's something that you've done which enables you to realize, ki, ha, I'm good for this role. So it's important for you to have actual, relevant, tangible impact showcased in your resume in terms of the work that you've done, the experience that you have, the projects that you've worked down. What was the actual contribution or value addition that you made? That is very important. It's not the rest of the story, it's the final result or the outcome that's important. So make sure that this is something that's specifically articulated in all of it: interviews, resumes, any level of any professional interaction. Very important. I hope that answers.
One thing I would like to ask, you said that share stories and be authentic. So, can you share one example of that?
Sure. All right. So I'll give you an example of a situation I very recently had. So I was sitting and having a conversation with this particular organization, but I was hoping to have the opportunity to deliver a workshop for the company. And as part of this interaction, so obviously they've seen my training profile. They know ki, ha, I do these sessions. They have all of the content there. They have the numbers. They know how many people have trained. They've seen the feedback, screenshots. They've seen everything. But what I actually wanted to do was to get through to them and tell them that here's what I'm here for. So, so there's been a situation where I was attending a conference in Bangalore. I'm based out of Bangalore. I was attending a conference over here. And as part of this conference, like anybody, right? So all of us sitting in this call now, we've attended this talk. You will all go look me up on LinkedIn. You will send me a note saying, hi, I listened to you over here. I would like to remain connected. So I did that for, there were a couple of senior leaders in that conference, and I connected with them over LinkedIn with this very simple thing by telling them, hi, we met at the conference today. I'd like to remain connected. I love the value that you were able to share today. Simple, there was nothing else. Fast forward to 8 months later, where through the kind of content that I was posting on LinkedIn, so we made a simple connection request that day. We accepted each other's connection requests and we were on each other's LinkedIn feed. We were looking at each other's content on a regular basis. They started following the content that I used to post. They started realizing that I was somebody who did a lot of training in terms of personal branding, in terms of building your LinkedIn presence and things like that. And I got an email from them 8 months down the line from there saying, hi, we'd like to set up a call with you. And I go on to this meeting because, obviously the senior leader inviting me, and they said they want to discuss something in terms of work. So I said, sure, let's get on this call. I got on this call with them, and I realized that they were following a lot of the work that I was doing, and they realized that they had their senior leadership development program that they were curating, and they were seeking out for speakers to be a part of this to deliver certain specific modules. And through all the work that I'd done, they decided they were going to reach out to me. They were going to skip the usual pool of trainers that they have, because almost all companies have a standard pool of trainers that they have for their leadership development programs. They decided to skip that entire pool and reach out to this one individual. And I'm 24 years old. I was 23 when that happened. And every individual in that room had at least 23 years of experience in the industry. I have existed on this planet just for 23 years. And it was just that, for people to realize the kind of value addition that I bring to the table, which I could have told you I've done 50 sessions, I've helped 1,000 people. As opposed to that, me giving them this story, the kind of connection that made and the impact that drove. I hope that answers.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening. This is Juhi. So, I just want to know, is there, other than LinkedIn, are there any other platforms for digital resumes?
So again, this will vary depending on the nature of the job that you're looking for. So a digital resume is different for different kinds of jobs. So your large professional presence is always going to be on LinkedIn, which is what, irrespective of the job role and the nature of domain, I will absolutely recommend that everybody has to be on it. But let's say you're looking for more technical kind of roles, something like a GitHub profile is also extremely important, because I need to be able to look at what kind of contributions you've made in the past, what kind of code you write, what kind of hackathons you've been a part of, things like that are important. Or for example, somebody looking for more design specific roles will probably want to have a Behance portfolio, but you have the rest of your work showcase in terms of what you've done. Somebody looking for writing roles will probably want to have a blog that they've set up where they have the content that you've written. So it'll vary depending on the nature of your role, but irrespective of all of this, LinkedIn absolutely important, 100% needed.
One more question. Are the content of digital resume and the resume that I will drop to us corporate or school will be different. The content will be little less in digital.
Not really. So, your content, the only large difference will be your LinkedIn profile will have all of your content from the very beginning of your professional tenure. Your resume may not specifically want to have everything because you cannot talk about 20 years of experience on your resume. You will highlight what's most important and most relevant for this particular point for the next role that you're applying. So, your resume will be a lot more concise. Your LinkedIn will have your entire professional career articulated till now.
Thank you very much,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Ma'am, we have another question in the chat box by
Yes.
Rakib Ali that says, do we have to show weaknesses in our resume?
So I will usually not recommend showcasing weaknesses in the resume. Usually this question comes up in interviews, irrespective. Important for you to spend time reflecting on identifying what your weaknesses are. But more importantly, it's important for you to understand that what are you doing to work on those weaknesses, or how are you moving those weaknesses to eventually develop into strengths of yours. So your resume at this point is more specifically coded just for you to understand how am I a relevant fit for this job or not. So showcasing a weakness is not answering that question for me to say, am I a fit or not? So your skill set and your strengths are what's most important to answer this question for me. Yeah, it's more important for you to understand this, and hence weakness is not important, but obviously reflect on them to understand what your weaknesses are and then move towards converting them into strengths.
I really feel, in our resume, there should be more of the positive attributes should be showcased. And one of our ambitions should also be in there. Like what is our goal, what is our vision towards our future, and if we are going to any of the institution, what knowledge we seek about them. Like even they wanted to know that also according to our experience.
Okay.
Just if you can brief something, what all other tricks and tactics we can do to make it more informative.
Sure, all right. So, the professional summary section is something that is usually very heavily recommended. Largely, also people with more experience because you've had the opportunity to do a lot till now. You've had the opportunity to be a part of a lot more projects and experiences. So, obviously, your experience section will highlight a lot of this. But to showcase a lot more of the credibility, there's a couple of things that your professional summary should do. The first is if you've been in the industry, say, for like 10, 15 years, you've identified what your niche is and what is it that you actually are passionate about doing. So that has to be very specifically articulated. It could be as simple as so when I put out my stuff, and I've not been in the industry for so long, but even when I still put it out, I very clearly articulate that my passion and my mission is to enable people to become more confident versions of themselves through all of the trainings that I do, through all of the enabling, whatever enablements I've got to do. But it's very important that this is communicated. So again, the right kind of words positioned in the right kind of manner, and a professional summary section that highlights one, your passion or your motivation to do what you do. And secondly, also talk about in the 10 years, 15 years of your experience, if there's two things that very specifically are core values to you, which you want to highlight and say that, yes, if this is something that your institution stands for, I'm your person. This is something that's very clearly supposed to come out of it. And again, examples will really do the job. A story or a quick anecdote will also do the job. So obviously the resume will vary. If you're somebody with a lot more experience, you will have a 2-pager, in which case you can then structure it this way. I hope that answers.
Ma'am, there's a question from Sakshi Asthana.
Yes.
How can freshers highlight their skills without much experience?
So for freshers, and I'll be very honest. So I was a fresher 3 years ago. I'll tell you what I did in my resume, and I'll tell you what worked. So and I'll tell you what has been working consistently. So I trained for placements in a lot of colleges, and this is one thing that we've noticed, tried and tested that really works. As a fresher, you may not necessarily have professional experience to drive credibility, but you will have leadership responsibilities and positions of responsibility you have undertaken in your academic tenure. You will also have a lot of volunteering that you've done. If you haven't done, here's your chance. Please start doing it. It's important for you to start showcasing your skills. This could be through volunteering assignments, it could be through projects, could be as simple as a leadership, something that you have done in your class, could be as part of a fest that you were either participating in or organizing for your college institute. does not matter. What's important is for you to make sure that your skills are highlighted in a positive manner. And nobody said it's just experience that highlights skills. It could be anything that you've had the opportunity to do, from a project to a paper that you published to an initiative that you led through a volunteering assignment that you were a part of. Anything at all. I volunteered for 3 years as part of during my undergraduate, and the kind of skills that I gained in that tenure, I can positively tell you that who I am today professionally is because of it. I would not be here today if not for that. The kind of exposure that it gives you is very, very important. So, irrespective of being a fresher, being a professional, being at whatever stage, what's important is how well you articulate your skills. So, identify your skills and make sure you start talking about things that highlight those skills very effectively. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for answering.
To know that in some of the resumes that the moment we convert it from Word to PDF, so what we do is, like if say suppose we have digital presence, as you talked that we the categorization goes into 3 sections. So we have now digital presence should be there. So is it fine that whatever the showcase, whatever we have now say suppose the with the help of the AI, it's getting boomed everywhere. So in order to have the digital presence, like say suppose if you're ghostwriter, you are having Medium, your projects are there, you're having GitHub, your certifications are there, you are having the Credly, Accredible, these all these platforms. So is it necessary that to have the links getting embedded or to have those embedding done in your resume and then convert it and send it across the ATS? And the second question was like all the companies who are there, so they generally prefer the third party ATS, or they do develop, or they do have their own ATS which is getting developed by them, and then they go ahead with the whatever the number of applications which are coming up to them.
Got it. So I'll take the second question first. So this is largely, obviously, industry and company specific. So this will vary. I've seen examples of both. A lot of times, I have seen that people always customize the ATS to their own company needs, but they're not developing their own. They take existing ones, they white label the solution, and then they change it in a manner that suits their company's requirement. So they may not necessarily be developing one from scratch. There are a lot of ones that do exist out there in the market which can easily be white labeled and taken on. So this is what a lot of companies do. But irrespective of how it's structured, the ATS is looking for keywords. It could be a third party filling in the keywords. It could be the company filling in the keywords. It could be whoever. The keywords are very specific to the role and the company. And hence there is going to be a requirement for that fitment to be matched, irrespective of who has developed it. Coming back to the first question, big fat yes. Absolutely important for you to have hyperlinked sources to actually validate and tell me, Iha, if I've done 5 certifications, instead of me telling you I've done 5 certifications, I'm showing you 5 certifications. So it's always important for us to actually have, so it could be a paper you've published, could be a YouTube video where you're talking, could be whatever. Always make sure that if you're stating something and you have proof to showcase it, could also be a certificate, could be a blog that you publish, like you said, on Medium, hyperlink it over there, just that if a person decides that they want to further go and take a look. So after the AI rule also, it's going to move on to a human recruiter. So if they want to take a look, you want to give them all the information that they have to go and take a look.
Like when we filter many of the resumes nowadays, most of the content is like chat GPT or Gemini. I means AI generated content
Yeah.
with their strengths and weaknesses. So when we filter them into human, many of them are failing. So how much the content should be like AI generated?
How much
So
of the content? Okay.
yeah, like everything is taken away from there and they are keeping it. So is that relevant to take it, or human content is given more important in the companies?
So, largely, again, so in terms of the kind of or the quantity, there is no actual number or percentage that I could give you. Say 50% AI is nice, 40% AI is nice. If you ask me, zero AI is nice. But of course, I need people. Not everybody's probably comfortable in terms of having very specifically well-structured grammar. So they are going to utilize these open source tools to get those things more efficient, which is completely fair. But in terms of the actual authenticity, unless and until it speaks to the actual individual's credibility, the more human it sounds, the better. And I'll also tell you this, we've had a lot of resumes that pass the AI test and they pass the ATS and come through, and then they all fall through in the interview. Because there's no point, right? Because the ATS said great, they're a good fit because the skills match, because all of their content was AI generated. But AI is not giving you an interview for you. It's the human being at the end that has to be able to talk about their skills and put forth what they're actually good for. So in such a situation, I think unless and until you are genuinely putting forth your real value, and the person that you showcase yourself to be in the interview and the persona that's coming out from the resume are a good fit, not necessarily going to work out. So less AI, more human, or even with AI, authentic AI. That's what's important.
We now invite Tanmay Sharma, ECLF, to deliver the vote of thanks.
So, hello everyone, good evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining today. So, as we have come to the end of today's episode, I really want to say how enriching and meaningful this hour has been, especially for me because I have just now, this past year, I've entered college. And when you enter college, you get to see many kids around you. And the first thing you hear out of their uh, the first thing that they talk to you about is internships, careers. So you will always feel overwhelmed, but you need a helping hand, which is of course our teachers, who are your guiding lights. So that is why, and especially from today's session, I've learned a lot of things which I did not know about, many key things. So, and to Sneha ma'am, the way you were sharing the concepts, it was not only that, but it was also many of the things which you spoke about, which were like completely new to me, and they helped me like gain a very clear perspective of many things which I had not thought about before. So once again, Team Anon extends a heartful gratitude to you, ma'am, for taking out time and having this partial episode with us and sharing your guidance. And of course, not forgetting, I would also like to thank our audience for today, who has been so attentive, so interactive, especially all the teachers. Still, the energy is there from the past three episodes, and it's just continuing. So, it's absolutely amazing to see that, as well as the interns. So, and of course, the special thank you to our entire team who is working behind the scenes. The planning, coordination, effort, everything is absolutely beautiful. So, not taking much time, I'll end with a very simple thought which is in my mind. When knowledge is shared and then you put efforts, knowledge and efforts together, growth becomes a collective journey. Then if you gain the knowledge, what can you do? You can only put efforts, and when you put those efforts, that is when your growth is a collective and successful journey. So thank you once again everyone for joining. Thank you so much, Sneha ma'am, for the session. And yeah, have a wonderful evening ahead, everyone.
Thank you so much. It was genuinely an amazing opportunity to be here and interact with so many of you. And like Dr. Ati was saying, it's been a very diverse audience, and the questions were only a testament to that. So thank you so much for showing up on a Sunday night. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the weekend. And I will see all of you on LinkedIn and as part of many more Anon sessions. Thank you.